There's a spider living at the bottom of the Antarctic Ocean right now with legs longer than your forearm. It doesn't have lungs, it doesn't have gills, it breathes through its skin. And in any other ocean on this planet, this animal would be smaller than your fingernail. But down here, in the freezing darkness of the polar deep, it's the size of a dinner plate. And it's not alone. Down here, jellyfish grow tentacles longer than blue whales. Starfish sprout 50 arms instead of 5. Worms stretch to 3 meters. Even plankton, the smallest things in the ocean, become 10 times heavier than they should be. The polar deep doesn't kill things. It makes them giant. And the scary part is, we still don't fully understand why. So, what is it about freezing water that breaks the size limit on almost everything that lives in it? And why hasn't this happened anywhere else on Earth? To understand why the polar deep builds giants, you first need to understand what the polar deep actually is. Because it's not just cold ocean, it's a completely different world with completely different rules. In most oceans, the continental shelf, that's the shallow zone near land, sits at around 100 to 200 meters deep. That's where most marine life lives, most sunlight reaches here, most food is produced here. But around Antarctica, the weight of billions of tons of ice has physically pushed the continental shelf down to 600 meters. That's 3 times deeper than normal. So the shallow zone around Antarctica starts where the deep sea begins everywhere else. And because the surface water is already near 0 degrees Celsius, there's almost no temperature difference between the surface and the abyss. In the tropics, surface water might be 28 degrees while the deep is 2 degrees. That temperature wall acts like a barrier, trapping deep sea creatures in the deep and shallow creatures in the shallows. But in the polar deep, that barrier doesn't exist. Deep sea creatures can crawl right up to the shallows. And shallow creatures can wander straight into the abyss. It's like someone removed the walls between floors in a building and let everyone roam free. This is called polar emergence. And it means the polar deep has something no other ocean has. A direct highway between the shallows and the deep. And everything on that highway is enormous. Now here's the part that doesn't make sense. You'd think that in the coldest, darkest, most food-scarce water on Earth, animals would shrink. Less food means less energy. Less energy should mean smaller bodies. That's basic biology. But the polar deep does the exact opposite. And the reason starts with something you can't even see. Oxygen. Cold water holds dramatically more dissolved oxygen than warm water. At 0 degrees, seawater holds nearly twice the oxygen concentration as tropical water at 25 degrees. And this matters because for every animal without lungs, things like invertebrates, worms, sea spiders, starfish, jellyfish, oxygen is the ceiling on how big they can get. Their cells need oxygen to function. The bigger the body, the more cells, the more oxygen required. In warm water, that oxygen ceiling is low. The water simply can't deliver enough oxygen to sustain a large body, so animals stay small. But in polar water, that ceiling effectively disappears. There's so much oxygen dissolved in the water that bodies can expand far beyond what's possible anywhere else. The limiter is gone. And when you remove the limiter, evolution does what it always does. It pushes everything to the extreme. Let's look at the most obvious proof. Sea spiders. In tropical reefs, sea spiders are barely visible. Maybe 1 or 2 centimeters across, small enough to sit on your thumbnail. They are technically not even real spiders. They're pycnogonids, a completely separate group. But they look like spiders. They move like spiders, and in the polar deep, they grow like nothing else on this planet. Antarctic sea spiders reach leg spans of over 40 centimeters, wider than a basketball. The exact same family, the exact same body plan, just 20 times larger. And here's what makes this even more bizarre. Sea spiders don't have lungs. They don't have gills. And they don't even have a dedicated respiratory system. They absorb oxygen directly through their exoskeleton, through their legs. In warm water, this works fine when you're tiny, because there's just enough oxygen seeping through that small body. But scale that up in warm water, and you suffocate. Your legs can't absorb enough oxygen fast enough to keep a larger body alive. In the polar deep, though, the water is so saturated with oxygen that even those primitive legs can pull in enough to sustain a body 20 times the normal size. The legs that should limit them actually become the reason they can grow. More leg means more surface area. More surface area means more oxygen absorption. It's a feedback loop. Evolution rode it all the way to dinner plate-sized sea spiders that creep across the Antarctic floor, piercing starfish with a proboscis and sucking out their insides like a smoothie. But oxygen alone doesn't explain everything, because if it did, you'd expect polar animals to simply be bigger versions of their warm water relatives. Same shape, same behavior, just scaled up. But that's not what happens. The cold changes everything about how these animals work, and it starts with metabolism. In warm water, chemical reactions inside cells happen fast. Metabolism runs hot. Animals burn through energy quickly, which means they need to eat constantly. In the polar deep, metabolism slows to a crawl. Chemical reactions happen at a fraction of the speed. And this has a strange consequence. Large bodies actually become more efficient in the cold. They burn less energy per unit of body mass than small bodies. In warm water, being big is expensive. You need more food, more oxygen, more everything just to keep running. In polar water, being big is actually cheaper. Your slow metabolism means you can survive on almost nothing. A giant Antarctic sea spider burns so little energy that it can go weeks without eating. A giant Antarctic starfish can survive for months between meals. This is why you see 40-year-old starfish down here. In tropical water, starfish might live 5 years. Down here, they live 8 times longer because their bodies are barely burning fuel. They're essentially living in slow motion, growing slowly, aging slowly, and dying very, very slowly. And speaking of starfish, polar gigantism didn't just make them bigger. It made them weirder. Normal starfish have 5 arms. That's their thing. 5-pointed star, simple and iconic. Antarctic starfish looked at that and said, no. Some species down here have grown over 50 arms. They look less like stars and more like living sunflowers crawling across the ocean floor. And they're brutal. Most starfish in warm water eat clams. They pry open the shell, insert their stomach, and digest the clam alive. Antarctic starfish do that too, but they also eat each other. They're cannibals. A 50-armed starfish will wrap itself around a 20-armed starfish and consume it. Whoever has the most arms wins. And that might actually be why they evolved so many arms in the first place. Not for hunting prey, but for winning fights against their own species. But the single most dramatic example of polar gigantism isn't a sea spider or a starfish. It's the colossal squid. Most people get this wrong. They think the colossal squid is a deep-sea giant, a product of abyssal gigantism. But it's not. The colossal squid lives almost exclusively in the Southern Ocean around Antarctica, in water that hovers right around 0 degrees Celsius. It's a polar giant, not a deep-sea giant. And here's the part that will actually break your brain. The colossal squid is a type of glass squid. Glass squids are a family of small, translucent, delicate squids that you can literally see through. Most glass squids fit in the palm of your hand. They're beautiful, fragile, almost ghostly. The colossal squid, however, is over 500 kilograms, more than 1,000 pounds of solid predator that evolved from something you could hold in your fingers. Same family, same genetic lineage. Polar gigantism took a glass ornament and turned it into the heaviest invertebrate on Earth. Its body traded transparency for thick insulating flesh. Its skin turned deep red, absorbing bioluminescent light instead of reflecting it, making it nearly invisible in the dark. Its tentacles evolved rotating hooks that lock into prey and never let go. It also has the largest eyes of any animal on the planet, each about the size of a dinner plate, built to detect the faintest traces of light in total darkness. This creature doesn't chase its prey. It waits. When something drifts close enough, it strikes once. The hooks lock in and escape becomes almost impossible. The only animal known to hunt it is the sperm whale. But even these giants don't leave the fight unharmed. Many surface with circular scars carved into their skin by those rotating hooks. The colossal squid is what happens when polar gigantism and deep-sea gigantism combine. Cold water, deep water, and millions of years of isolation, turning a delicate squid lineage into the heaviest invertebrate predator on Earth. But this raises a question. If cold environments create giants, why are animals like the polar bear also so large? Is that polar gigantism too? Not exactly. Polar gigantism mainly affects cold-blooded animals that absorb oxygen directly from the water. In freezing oceans, oxygen levels are high and metabolism is slow, allowing bodies to grow far larger than usual. Warm-blooded animals follow different rules. They must constantly burn energy to maintain body temperature, so every increase in size demands more food. The large size of polar bears is explained by Bergmann's rule, which states that animals in colder climates tend to evolve larger bodies because bigger bodies lose heat more slowly. But Bergmann's rule has limits. Warm-blooded animals can grow large for warmth, but they cannot grow without limits like many cold-blooded marine creatures. The oxygen-rich water formed around Antarctica spreads along the ocean floor across the entire planet, sustaining deep-sea ecosystems everywhere. If that system weakens, vast parts of the deep ocean could become low-oxygen zones. These giants are not just strange curiosities from a frozen world. They are warning signs. The polar deep removed the normal biological limits on size and created some of the most extreme animals on Earth. But it did so by building one of the most fragile ecosystems on the planet. One wrong degree, and the giants disappear.